Hello! Rearranging formulae is a topic which a lot of people make mistakes on, which is unfortunate because it features in a lot of different questions in a GCSE paper. So it's something that if you can improve, then you really do want to work on. And so this question down here, question often is, where do we get started? I mean, do I need to divide by that 2 or add that t, or I'm guessing that it's either the t or the p that it wants to rearrange to be the subject. So do we multiply the p up, or do we add the t to both sides? What do we do? Now we'll come back to that, by the way. We're not just leaving that as an unanswered question. We will come back to that. You might be wondering what's with all the boxes. Well, the idea is that imagine you've just moved house and you piled all these boxes up. Understandably, you'd quite like a cup of tea, after all that moving of boxes. But unfortunately, the kettle is down here in this box. So if you want a cup of tea, we're going to have to shift some boxes around. Now, you wouldn't open up this box and empty it and then move it out of the way and then open up the next one. You're just going to pick up that box and move it out of the way somewhere on the other side of the room, or on the floor next to it, whatever. You're going to move it out of the way. You're then going to pick up the next box, just the whole box. You're just going to move it out of the way. And then the bottom box, which has the kettle in, we're going to open that up and empty out the contents until we find the kettle. And that's the kind of attitude that you really want to have when you're rearranging formulae. You want to focus just on the term of the equation that has the variable that you want to find, and just move everything else out of the way. Now, as I said, we will come back to this quite tricky one. We'll come back to that later. Let's start off looking at an easier question, just to see how the boxes work for an easier topic, an easier question, and then we'll try some other questions and see how it works. So first of all, what are my boxes? Well, anything that's separated, completely separated by adding and taking, is a separate box. So if there is a bracket around it, or if it's part of a fraction, well, then that's not separated because it's glued together with that fraction or square root or whatever it might be. But if it's completely separated just by an add or a take, then it's a different box. So we've got 3 here. We've got the y, which is in a box. We've got the 2x, and we've got the +3. Those are our 3 boxes. And if there's no sign in front, then it's a plus. And that's why I've left a little space, so we can add a plus there. It's a good idea to add that in if you find it easy to forget that they're positive, so they would be taken away. So now we've got them in boxes, we can just move these boxes across the equal sign by adding and taking. Whatever the sign is at the front of the box, we're going to do the opposite, and that's going to move it to the other side. It's going to be the opposite. So the box which I want is this one. This has the x in. It's x that I'm making the new subject of the formula. That's the box that I'm interested in. Any other boxes are just going to move over to the other side. This one that on the other side is not in the way. We're just going to leave that there. But this 3 is annoying. It's stopping us from getting into the box. Now, okay, the analogy doesn't work here because if these were boxes, I could just open the top of this. But the idea of the boxes is we just want to have just the one left on its own, which it has the thing that we want. So it's the +3 we've got to get rid of, and the opposite of adding 3 is taking 3. So on the left-hand side, we're going to get our +y box. We're going to change the +3 into take 3 as we're moving it across the equal sign. So we've got that there, and this equals 2x. And this is still +2x, and we put it in its box. Once I've got the box on its own with the thing that I want, in this case the x, now I can open the box like I opened the box to find the kettle, I'm going to open this box to find the x. And when we look at this box and we open it up, it's got 2x. So the way we break that apart is obviously doing the opposite. It's 2 times x, so we divide. We can get rid of the boxes now, the squares around it. We don't need that plus at the beginning. Y minus 3, and we're dividing by 2. We divide the whole lot by 2, and this equals x. The idea of these boxes is just to make sure that you move things out of the way before you divide. So many times I see people dividing by 2 first and then taking 3. If that's the kind of mistake you make, then maybe putting the boxes around is just going to stop you from making those mistakes. Obviously, what we'll do here is just flip this round for the final answer and say x equals y minus 3 all over 2. And we're done. Let's look at some other examples. So, the first one that we've got here, p equals pi r plus 2r plus 2a. Now, it's a that we want to make the subject first of all. So, we've got 4 boxes here. We've got the plus p. We've got, now we haven't got space to write the plus in here, but there's plus, just squeeze it in, plus pi r. We've got the plus 2r and the plus 2a. So we've got 4 boxes. And the only box I'm interested in is the one with the a in, because ultimately I want at the bottom to be able to say a equals. That's what I'm aiming for. So I'm just going to move the other 2 boxes across. Plus pi r is going to move across as minus pi r. Plus 2r is going to move over as minus 2r. So we're going to get the p that we've already got. We're going to take that pi r, like we said, take pi r, we're going to take away 2r as well. And that's going to just leave us that box which has 2a in it. Now we've got the 2a on its own, now I can open it up and say, okay, well, how am I going to get the a out of this box now? Well, it's 2 times a, so I can do the whole thing divided by 2, and that's going to get rid of that. So a, flipping it around as well, just sort of left, right, flipping it in one fell swoop, we're going to get p minus pi r minus 2r all over 2. I'm not so worried what the other side looks like. The only thing I'm really interested in is that I've got my a equals. That's what I want. Okay, let's have a look at the next example, which is slightly harder because there's a bracket and there's a fraction. So you might be tempted to say, oh, well, you know, there's the 5x and there's the 7. I can't see any of that yet because everything is stuck together in one giant box. Yes, there's some adding, but it's sort of kept together with this bracket and this multiplication of the third. So because there's some times in gluing them together, it's not just adding and take. This is one big box, and yet it's plus at the beginning, and we've got another box here. So there is no moving of boxes to do here. We've just got to open this up first. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, well, the brackets are only needed because we're timesing by a third. So we'll do the opposite of that. Timesing by a third, we don't want to divide by a third and have a fraction with a fraction in it. Think about it. This is 1 times the bracket, and then the bracket divided by 3. That's what a fraction is. It's a times and a divide. The top is a times and the bottom is a divide. So the opposite of the divide is divide by 3, so it's times by 3. So we're going to get 3y. And we don't need to worry about doing the opposite of timesing by 1. Divide by 1. We can just ignore timesing by 1. So we now don't need the bracket. So what we now have is just 5x plus 7. So now we've opened up this box. We opened the box by getting rid of that third timesing by the 3, but inside this box we find there's 2 smaller boxes. So now we've got 2 separate things. Sorry, 2 things completely separate, except for adding and taking. So now we have our boxes, and now we can revert back to that original method of move away all the things we don't need, and the things we don't need is this box with 7 in it. It doesn't contain an x, so I'm not interested. So 3y minus 7 equals 5x. Now we've got the box on its own with the x in. We get rid of the 5. It's 5 times x, so we divide and switch it round left to right, and we're going to get 3y minus 7, which is what we already had, and then just put it all over 5. Okay, so don't be tempted to action this 7 first if it's grouped together with anything other than adding and taking. Okay, in this case, it was grouped together with a multiplication of a third in a bracket. That keeps it together, and we must not try and open up that box. You know, just try and ignore what's inside it and just treat it as, well, there's a box, and, you know, to open it up, the first thing is it's times by a third, or divide by 3, and do the opposite. Okay, the last example for now, because we've still got the one we started with right at the beginning. Here we go, and we want A to become the subject. Now this is hard for 2 reasons. Firstly, there's this fraction, but also we've got A in 2 places instead of just 1 place. So that is going to make life a little bit trickier. How many boxes? Well, there's only 2 boxes because all of this counts as one big old box. Because there's the fraction line. The fraction line makes it joined together as one thing, and obviously the P is in a box. So how are we going to open this up? Well, again, like we had last time, if we open the box up and we see, well, it's just a fraction. Well, what is a fraction? It's a number divided by a number. So I'm actually going to put brackets around this. And again, if you make mistakes when there's fractions involved, get into good habits like putting brackets around. And then when you think about multiplying and moving things, you can move the whole bracket. So I would be tempted to try and move these, the 3 and the 5, add and take them, but I can't. They're in these brackets. So the first thing we're dealing with is the fact that we've got some number divided by some number. The fact that there's A's and pluses and 3's and things doesn't matter. It's just a number divided by a number. And how do I get rid of a denominator? Well, like we times by 3 last time, we're going to times by the whole denominator. And we're going to get P bracket A minus 5 equals A plus 3. Now I can drop the bracket from the A plus 3 because now nothing's happening to it, so I can get rid of it. But not this one. And I see that loads when marking GCSEs. I see people multiply up A minus 5, but they write PA minus 5 with no brackets. So it just looks like you're timesing A by P, and the 5 doesn't get multiplied by the P. If you forget that bracket, then you don't get the first mark, and you usually don't get any of the marks. Now you can see, though, because I've got a bracket, we've got to multiply both things by P. So we're going to get, I'm going to actually write it as AP, because I like it to be alphabetical. There's no requirement to do that. It's just feels nicer. So now I've multiplied out the bracket. I've got AP minus 5P. Sorry, it looks a bit like an S. 5P equals A plus 3. So now we've got 4 boxes. Okay, we've got plus AP here, and you could write the plus in if you're going to forget. We've got minus 5P here. We've got plus A here. Again, you can write in the plus if you're going to forget it. And we've got plus 3 here. All of the boxes which contain the thing I want, A, are going to come over to one side. And all the things that contain, or rather, don't contain the thing I want, are going to go to the other side because I don't need them. Get them out of the way. So AP, you can stay because you contain an A. Need to get rid of this one. Not interested in this. So we'll do the opposite. We're going to add it. It's going to move over the other side. So we're keeping AP, and the 5p is going to move over here and it's going to be plus. Okay, so plus 5p. The plus a, well, that's the thing I want. I want the a, so we need to bring it over to this side to be with all the other boxes with a. It's a plus, so it's going to become a minus. And then the 3 doesn't contain an a. It's already on the other side, so we just leave it there. It was a plus 3. It can be a plus 3 again. Now, does it matter if I had put the plus 3 and then added the 5p afterwards? No, it doesn't matter. And as long as the boxes are all keeping the correct sign, so as long as you change that to a plus, that's still what it should be with the opposite sign because it moved. This still has the sign it had already because it hasn't moved. So it doesn't matter if you write that as 3 plus 5p. It makes no difference. Now, what do we do about these a's? There's 2 of them. Well, actually, because they're both just an a, there's no squared or anything like that, we can factorize them and reduce that to 1a. So we're going to get a bracket p minus 1, and that equals our 5p plus 3. I'm going to drop the plus from the beginning. We don't need it. And now we can get rid of this bracket. We've got the thing we want on its own. We've made 2 boxes. We've sort of condensed them into 1 box. And how do we get rid of the thing we don't want? We're timesing by the whole bracket. So we're going to divide by that whole bracket. And I'm going to get a equals 5p plus 3 all over p minus 1. I don't need the bracket anymore because the fraction line implies a bracket, just like it did up here, and we put the brackets on so we wouldn't forget. Well, now we don't need to do anything, so we don't need those brackets, so we're not going to do anything, so we can't forget to do something that we're not going to do. Okay, so the key thing there, I think, is putting these brackets on at the beginning so you don't forget that when this comes up, it's p times a and times the minus 5. I mean, that could be the first mark. I've seen that in previous years, that just writing that down is the first mark. And then obviously, if you expand it and start rearranging, then you get even more. But if you don't put that bracket, it's very hard to get the subsequent marks. Okay, so let's go back to that very first one we looked at. And actually, now it doesn't look so bad at all. It's very similar to the one we just did. We now know that this whole fraction, actually, we can't add the t, okay, because it's trapped inside this big box. Okay, we can't do anything with the adding and taking until we've separated the fact that it's in this fraction. We need to sort out the numerator and denominator. So I'm going to bracket the bottom. Obviously, I don't need to bracket the top because there's no adding and taking. So it's this 2pt, this number at the top, divided by this bracketed number on the bottom. And because the denominator has the thing I want, which, I didn't say, I don't know which one's p or t. Well, we do it in both ways. So let's say we want p first. It's in the denominator. We need to multiply it up. So we're going to get y bracket p minus t equals 2pt. Expand the bracket like we did before, and we get py minus ty equals 2pt. If we want the p, then we've got 3 boxes here. We've got one that's positive, one that's negative, and another that's positive. All the p's need to come to one side, and all the things that don't contain a p go to the other side. So py can stay as it is, so it stays positive. The 2pt needs to come over, and it goes from positive to negative, so it comes minus 2pt. And the minus ty is negative. It's got to get rid of it. It's not got the p in it, so we add it to the other side, and it comes over here. And now to get the p out, we're going to factorize p bracket y minus 2t equals ty, and then we can divide p equals ty over y minus 2t. And I can drop that bracket now because the fraction implies it. Well, what if it was actually finding t? We said we'd do it both. Well, actually, it's the same up until this point. Exactly the same. We have a t in the denominator, multiply it up, expand the bracket. But this time, we want to bring all the things with a t in to one side. So if we just add add the ty, it is negative, we just add that, we're going to get it on the other side. So we're going to get the fact that py equals 2 pt plus ty. So actually, we could have just taken py away, and that would have been fine. But it doesn't matter. There's lots of ways to do it. So yes, back to this one. We've moved that across. We've got t in both boxes, and they're both on the same side. So we get py equals, factorize it to t bracket 2p plus y, and then divide by that bracket and switch it around. T equals py divided by 2p plus y. The key thing is not to try and add and take things until they are a separate box. Whilst they're all part of one box, then you really need to open up the boxes. So it's a case of deciding, is this one big thing and I need to start with the timesing and dividing, or are they separate things already, separate outboxes that I can just add and take and move those before I start opening up to find the thing that I want. Okay, so here are some questions for you to have a go at, and I'll make another video going through those answers. Ta-ra for now.